I never thought my golden retriever would be the one to expose my husband's plan to leave me homeless. But that Tuesday morning, when Charlie ripped a stack of papers right out of David's hands, everything I thought I knew about my marriage shattered. By Friday, I'd frozen $670,000 of his assets, and he was begging me not to press charges. It started like any other morning. I was making coffee, still in my pajamas, watching the suburban Chicago sunrise through our kitchen window. David sat at the table with his laptop, supposedly reviewing quarterly reports. Charlie, our 5-year-old golden retriever, usually sprawled at David's feet during breakfast, tail thumping whenever David reached down to scratch his ears. They were buddies, best friends. But that morning, Charlie wouldn't go near him. "Charlie, come here, boy," David called, patting his leg. Charlie stayed pressed against my legs, his warm body rigid. His tail, normally wagging like a metronome, hung completely still. "What's wrong with him?" David's voice had an edge I'd never heard before. "I don't know. Maybe he's not feeling well?" I reached down to stroke Charlie's golden fur. His muscles were tense, coiled. His eyes never left David. "Before I tell you what happened next, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. And if this story hits home, don't forget to subscribe. I share these stories because we all need to trust our instincts and our dogs." Over the next 3 days, Charlie's behavior got stranger. He refused to eat when David was in the kitchen. He'd position himself between me and David whenever we talked. At night, instead of sleeping in his usual spot at the foot of our bed, he'd squeeze himself between us, forcing David to the edge of the mattress. "Your dog is becoming a problem," David said Thursday evening, shoving Charlie away. "Maybe we need to rehome him." My stomach dropped. "Rehome him? David, he's family. He's aggressive. Look at this." David held up his forearm, showing me a scratch. "He did this when I tried to move him off the couch." I examined Charlie carefully. In 5 years, he'd never shown aggression to anyone. He let children climb on him. He'd once let a stray cat eat from his bowl while he waited patiently. This wasn't him, but everyone around me disagreed. "Golden retrievers can develop behavioral issues as they age," my sister said over the phone. "Maybe he's territorial now." David's mother was worse. "That dog has always been spoiled. This is what happens when you treat animals like children." I started doubting myself. Maybe I was being ridiculous. Maybe Charlie was just going through a phase. Maybe I was projecting my own anxieties onto my dog's behavior. But Friday morning, everything changed. I was running late for my shift at the hospital where I worked as a nurse. David was in his home office with the door closed. He'd been spending more time there lately, taking calls in hushed tones. I rushed through the house, grabbing my keys, my badge, my water bottle. That's when I heard it. A sound I'd never heard Charlie make before. A deep guttural snarl. I ran toward David's office. The door was half open now. Charlie had something in his mouth, backing away from David, who was lunging forward trying to grab it. "Give it here, you stupid dog!" David's face was red, twisted with rage. "David, what's going—" Charlie bolted past me, papers clenched in his jaws. David chased after him, shouting. I stood frozen in the doorway of the office, my heart hammering. Charlie had never, ever taken anything that wasn't his. He'd been trained since puppyhood. He wouldn't even pick up a sock from the floor. I looked at David's desk. His laptop was open. Scattered documents covered the surface. And there, in the corner of the screen, I saw the header of an email. Final sale agreement, 2847 Maple Grove Drive. Our address. My hands went cold. I moved closer to the laptop. The email was from a real estate attorney. I scrolled up, my breath catching in my throat. David was selling our house. Not we. Him. Just him. The papers Charlie had grabbed were closing documents, scheduled for Monday. In 3 days, our home of 8 years would belong to someone else. The home I'd poured my savings into. The home where we'd planned to raise children. I heard David cursing in the hallway, still chasing Charlie. My golden retriever, who'd seemed aggressive and territorial, had been trying to protect me all along. I quickly pulled out my phone and started photographing everything on the screen. Every email, every document. The sale price, $680,000. I clicked through the email threads, my hands shaking. That's when I found the second account. David had opened a separate bank account 4 months ago. I scrolled through the statements he'd foolishly left in his email. wire transfers, cryptocurrency purchases, and a plane ticket to Costa Rica dated for next Wednesday. One ticket. He wasn't just selling our house. He was leaving the country with everything. Charlie appeared in the doorway, papers still in his mouth, tail wagging now. David wasn't behind him. I could hear him in the garage, probably looking for treats to lure Charlie out. "Good boy," I whispered, my voice breaking. "Such a good boy." Charlie dropped the papers at my feet. They were the deed transfer documents, covered in drool, but readable. His brown eyes looked up at me, and I swear I saw relief there, like he'd been carrying this burden for days, trying desperately to show me. I heard David's footsteps coming back inside. I shoved my phone in my pocket, heart racing. I had maybe 2 minutes before he came back to the office. Think. I quickly photographed the papers Charlie had grabbed, then tossed them back onto the desk in a scattered mess, like they'd fallen during the chase. I closed the laptop slightly, making it less obvious I'd been looking. Then I grabbed Charlie's collar and pulled him with me toward the front door. "I'm taking Charlie to the vet," I called out, my voice surprisingly steady. "Something's definitely wrong with him." I didn't wait for David's response. I loaded Charlie into my car and drove. But I wasn't going to the vet. I was going somewhere David would never expect. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard, my knuckles went white. Charlie sat in the passenger seat, his head resting on my shoulder, finally calm. While I'd been doubting my dog, dismissing his warnings as behavioral problems, David had been systematically planning to destroy my life. I pulled into the parking lot of Muller & Associates, the law firm that had handled my father's estate 3 years ago. I'd kept their card, never imagining I'd need them like this. "I need to see someone immediately," I told the receptionist. "It's an emergency." Something in my face must have convinced her, because 15 minutes later, I was sitting across from Sarah Mueller herself, watching her face darken as I showed her the photographs on my phone. "Your name is on the deed, correct?" Sarah asked, typing rapidly. "Yes. We bought it together. Joint tenancy. Then he can't sell it without your signature. These documents are fraudulent." She looked up at me, her expression grim. "Do you have a joint bank account?" My stomach dropped again. "Yes. Our main savings account, about $340,000. Sarah grabbed her phone. "We need to freeze that account right now, and we need to file an emergency restraining order against any asset transfers. If he's planning to leave the country, he's probably already moving money." The next 3 hours were a blur. Sarah made calls. I signed documents. We contacted the bank, the real estate attorney, the title company. With each phone call, more of David's plan unraveled. He'd forged my signature on the sale documents. He'd created a fake power of attorney. He'd been slowly transferring money from our joint account to his secret account for 4 months. Small amounts at first, then larger chunks. $340,000 of our shared savings was already gone. But the cryptocurrency purchases? Those were still traceable, still recoverable. The total value of assets he attempted to hide or transfer is approximately $670,000, Sarah said, showing me her calculations. Your half of the house sale, your savings, and his 401k that he liquidated last month without telling you. $670,000. He was going to leave me with nothing. By 6 p.m., we'd filed for an emergency hearing. By 8 p.m., all of David's accounts were frozen. By 10 p.m., I had a temporary restraining order preventing him from selling any marital assets or leaving the state. I sat in my car outside the law office, Charlie in the back seat, and finally let myself cry. Not because I was sad. I was furious. But because for 3 days, I doubted the one creature who'd been trying to save me. I drove to my sister's house instead of going home. I couldn't face David yet. Not until I had to. "I'm so sorry I told you to ignore him," my sister said, hugging me tight while Charlie finally ate dinner, his appetite apparently restored. "I'm so sorry." That night, lying in my sister's guest room with Charlie curled against me, I Googled David's name with new eyes. What else had I missed? I found his dating profile. Active for 6 months. I found reviews he'd left for restaurants in Costa Rica, written just 2 weeks ago. "Can't wait to move here permanently," one read. He'd been planning this for at least half a year. While I'd been working double shifts at the hospital to save for the vacation we'd talked about, while I'd been researching fertility doctors because we'd decided to start trying for a baby. He'd been planning his escape. Charlie's warm weight against my side kept me grounded. He'd known. Somehow, he'd sensed it. Maybe it was David's stress, his guilt manifesting in ways I couldn't detect, but Charlie could. Maybe dogs really do have a sixth sense. Monday morning arrived, the day David had planned to close on the house sale. Instead, he got served with divorce papers and a summons to appear in court. I got the call from Sarah at 9:47 a.m. "He's trying to contest the account freeze," she said. "The hearing is scheduled for Wednesday. Are you ready?" I looked at Charlie, who sat at my feet in my sister's kitchen, tail wagging, eyes bright again. "I'm ready." Wednesday's hearing was held in a small, wood-paneled courtroom that smelled like old books and floor polish. David sat with his attorney on one side. I sat with Sarah on the other. Charlie wasn't allowed inside, so my sister waited with him in the hallway. David wouldn't look at me. His jaw was clenched, his hands clasped so tightly on the table, his knuckles were bone white. Judge Patricia Hernandez reviewed the evidence Sarah had prepared: the forged documents, the email threads, the secret accounts, the cryptocurrency transfers, the one-way plane ticket. "Mr. Patterson," Judge Hernandez said, her voice sharp, "did you forge your wife's signature on these real estate documents?" David's attorney whispered something to him. David cleared his throat. We'd discussed selling. I thought she was on board." "That's not what I asked. Did you forge her signature?" Silence. "Your Honor," Sarah stood, "we have handwriting analysis that confirms the signature is not my client's. We also have testimony from the title company that Mrs. Patterson never appeared for the signing, which is required for joint property. Mr. Patterson told them his wife was out of town and would sign electronically," which was a lie. Judge Hernandez's expression could have frozen lava. "Mr. Patterson, I'm looking at evidence of fraud, forgery, and planned asset dissipation on a massive scale. You attempted to sell marital property without your spouse's knowledge or consent, forge legal documents, and flee the country with approximately $670,000 in marital assets." "Your Honor, I can explain," David started. "I don't want your explanations. I want to know if you understand the gravity of what you've done." She looked at the bailiff. "I'm ordering all marital assets to remain frozen. I'm also referring this case to the state's attorney for potential criminal charges related to forgery and fraud." David's face went gray. "Furthermore," Judge Hernandez continued, "I'm awarding Mrs. Patterson temporary sole possession of the marital home, temporary sole control of all joint accounts, and I'm ordering you, Mr. Patterson, to turn over your passport within 24 hours. The hearing lasted 40 minutes. When it was over, David stood on shaking legs. His attorney looked shell-shocked. I walked past them without a word. In the hallway, Charlie's entire body wiggled when he saw me. I knelt down and buried my face in his soft golden fur. "You saved me," I whispered. "You saved everything." Over the next 2 months, the full scope of David's planning became clear. He'd been having an affair with a woman he'd met online who lived in Costa Rica. He'd promised her a new life funded by our assets. He'd even told her he was divorced. I found those messages too. The cryptocurrency he'd purchased had been transferred to her account, but because we'd frozen everything so quickly, the transactions were traced and reversed. Every penny came back. David eventually agreed to a settlement rather than face criminal prosecution. I got the house, 70% of our retirement accounts, and full recovery of the savings he'd stolen. The final number was $487,000 returned to me, plus the house worth another $680,000. He left with his car and about $140,000. The woman in Costa Rica blocked him the moment she realized he was broke. 6 months later, I stood in my backyard now, legally and fully mine, watching Charlie chase butterflies through the grass. The house felt different, lighter somehow, despite all that had happened. I'd quit the hospital job that had me working double shifts. With the settlement money properly invested, I didn't need to kill myself working anymore. Instead, I'd started volunteering at a domestic violence shelter, helping women navigate financial abuse. Because that's what David had been doing, I realized. Financial abuse. Systematically isolating me from my own assets, making plans to leave me destitute while he started over. "Mrs. Patterson?" My new neighbor, an elderly woman named Dorothy, leaned over the fence. "I hope you don't mind my asking, but what kind of dog is that?" "He's beautiful. Golden Retriever. His name is Charlie. He seems like a good boy." I smiled, watching Charlie flop onto his back in the sunshine, tongue lolling out in pure joy. "The best. He actually saved my life." "Oh my. How so?" I told her the story. Not all of it, but the important parts. How Charlie had sensed something wrong. How he'd literally grabbed the evidence I needed. How I'd almost dismissed his behavior as aggression. Dorothy's eyes welled up. "My dog tried to warn me about my ex-husband too, 40 years ago. I didn't listen." She shook her head. "I wish I had." Over the following weeks, I heard similar stories from friends, from women at the shelter, from people who reached out after hearing what had happened through the local community. So many dogs trying to protect their people. So many warnings dismissed as behavioral problems. I started keeping a journal of these stories. Maybe someday I'd do something with them. The divorce was finalized in month 8. I didn't attend the final hearing. I'd said everything I needed to say already. Sarah called me afterward. "It's done. You're free." I hung up and looked at Charlie, who was watching me with those intelligent brown eyes. "We're free," I told him. He wagged his tail and brought me his favorite ball. His way of saying the danger had passed and it was time to play again. Last month, I ran into David at the grocery store. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. He tried to talk to me, to apologize, to explain. I walked past him without a word, Charlie trotting beside me, tail high. I don't know what would have happened if Charlie hadn't grabbed those papers. I'd probably have come home from work to find the locks changed, the bank accounts empty, and David gone. I'd have been homeless, broke, and completely blindsided. Instead, I'm here, in my home, with my savings intact, building a new life. People ask me all the time how I knew to trust Charlie's instincts. The truth is, I almost didn't. I almost medicated him, rehomed him, or dismissed his behavior entirely. I got lucky. Or maybe Charlie got desperate enough to make a move so obvious I couldn't ignore it. These days, Charlie and I have a routine. Every morning, we walk through the neighborhood. Every evening, we sit on the back porch and watch the sunset. He's back to his old self, friendly, goofy, tail always wagging. But sometimes, when a stranger approaches, I watch his body language more carefully now. I pay attention. I've also started a small consulting business, helping women who suspect financial abuse. I teach them what to look for: secret accounts, unusual money transfers, changes in behavior around finances. I show them how to protect themselves legally before it's too late. Charlie comes to my office with me. He's basically my business partner at this point. Clients love him. More than once, women have told me they feel safer talking about difficult things with a golden retriever resting his head on their knees. Last week, a woman named Jennifer came in. Her story was eerily similar to mine. Her husband acting strange. Her Labrador refusing to let the husband near their joint computer. Everyone telling her she was paranoid. "Trust your dog," I told her, leaning forward. I know how crazy that sounds. I know everyone will tell you you're overreacting. But dogs sense things we miss. They pick up on stress, on guilt, on danger. They're not complicated creatures. When they protect someone, there's a reason. Jennifer started crying. I thought I was losing my mind. You're not. And we're going to make sure you don't lose anything else. Within a week, we'd discovered her husband had taken out a second mortgage on their house without her knowledge. $280,000 he'd moved to an offshore account. We froze it all. We filed for emergency protection. We saved her home. Her Labrador, a sweet chocolate-colored girl named Rosie, had been right all along. I think about David sometimes, not with anger anymore, mostly with pity. He threw away 8 years of marriage, a home, a partner who loved him, all for what? A fresh start funded by fraud? A relationship built on lies? He's living in a studio apartment across town now. I heard through mutual friends that he lost his job when the criminal investigation became public. The Costa Rica woman sued him for the money he'd promised her. He can't even get a decent line of credit anymore. Meanwhile, I'm thriving. I'm genuinely happy. I wake up in a house I own outright, with a dog who saved me, doing work that matters. The other day, I was interviewed by a local news station about financial abuse awareness. They asked me what advice I'd give to others. Pay attention to the people and the animals who love you, I said, reaching down to scratch Charlie's ears. When someone who knows you well says something's wrong, believe them. When your dog, who's been friendly and gentle their whole life, suddenly acts protective or aggressive, investigate. Don't dismiss it. Don't explain it away. Animals have instincts we've lost. They can sense danger before we consciously recognize it. Charlie didn't just save my house or my money. He saved me from years of wondering what happened, from thinking I'd somehow failed or wasn't enough. He showed me the truth when I needed it most. Charlie looked up at me during the interview, tail wagging, and I swear he understood every word. That interview went viral. I've received hundreds of messages from people sharing their own stories, dogs who warned them about dangerous partners, cats who hissed at abusive relatives, even a parrot who learned to mimic a cheating spouse's phone conversations. We're more connected to animals than we remember. They're not just pets. They're family members who watch, listen, and care about our well-being. When they try to tell us something, we should listen. I'm not saying trust your dog blindly about everything, but when a normally friendly, well-adjusted animal suddenly changes behavior around a specific person, when they become protective, anxious, or defensive in ways that are completely out of character, pay attention, investigate, ask questions. It might feel paranoid. People might tell you you're being ridiculous, but I'm sitting here in my home, financially secure, building a life I love, because I finally listened to my golden retriever. And David? He's probably wishing he'd just been honest, been a partner instead of a thief, treated our marriage like it mattered instead of like an ATM he could rob on his way out the door. But he didn't, and Charlie made sure I found out before it was too late. So yeah, trust your dog, trust your gut. They're usually trying to tell you the same thing. And sometimes that warning is the only thing standing between you and losing everything. If your dog is acting strange around someone, really strange, not just normal jealousy or territorial stuff, don't ignore it. Document what's happening. Look for other signs. And if you find something, don't wait. Get help immediately. Share this story. It might save someone you love. It might save someone who's sitting there right now, wondering if they're crazy for worrying about their dog's behavior. You're not crazy. Your dog sees something you can't. Listen to them. I did. And it changed everything.